On the line with us, Randi Weingarten, president of the American Federation of Teachers. AFT.org is the website, and also a pretty enthusiastic spokesperson for the Hillary Clinton campaign. But you can tweet Randi Weingarten at rweingarten, W-E-I-N-G-A-R-T-E-N. And President Weingarten, welcome back.
Hey, Tom, how are you?
I'm fine. It's been a while since we've talked.
I love listening to your commentary before. That was really, really deep. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a fill that we put in, for people listening online when the commercial stations are running the news and things on their radio stations. So not a whole lot of people hear it, but it's an excerpt from one of my books. But thank you for your kind words. Unions. We have not been hearing much conversation about unions, frankly, in the last decade or so. And, or a couple of decades. I mean, since Reagan declared war on unions, we've gone from about a third of our workforce being unionized down to, what, 7% in the private sector? And where are things like card check at? What's the status of unions right now? How are the teachers union, the American Federation of Teachers, doing? Sorry to throw all this at you.
No. So look,
it's a big topic.
So we're actually growing. We are actually at the highest level we've ever been. We're over 1.6 million, and what we're seeing, and what I think some of the other unions are seeing now, is that people want to be organized, and they know that they need to have a real voice, and the only way they have a voice is through an independent, it's through a union. But the union has to be a democratic one. It has to be one where people really feel like their voice is heard, and I'm pretty excited because we've just in the last few months organized over 4,000 people and have organizing campaigns going on all over in nursing and in higher education and in charters and in Texas where teachers by and large are not organized. So we feel that the pendulum is shifting, but as you said, for about 20 years or so, there was an absolute attempt by the right wing and by people who are affiliated with the both Bush administrations and others to actually just make it much harder to organize, and that really really hurt individuals' right to organize. And then on top of that, you've had globalization and deindustrialization and all of the reasons why we're fighting so hard for fair trade deals instead of, free trade deals. But both Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton spent a lot of time in the primary campaign talking about workers, the working class, and the need for unions. And so even though Donald Trump has a soundbite about TPP, if you look at the rest of his program, he thinks that he's the only one who has any kind of voice. And frankly, workers need to have an independent voice. And when unions were strong, we had a strong middle class. There was a direct correlation between voice at work and being able to improve the quality of your family's work life. And that's what we're trying to get back to, both in the private sector as well as the public sector.
I think a lot of people don't realize, we literally, I grew up in Lansing, Michigan. Maybe my experience was unique because it was Michigan and it was, Lansing was a General Motors town, Fisher Body and GM. And pretty much everybody I knew, their parents worked, on the assembly lines and whatnot. My dad worked in a tool and die shop. The whole, But we studied labor in elementary school and in junior high school as part of our civics courses. We actually studied the history of labor. And now, I don't know if this was happening all over the country or just in Michigan, but the history of labor, the reality that the modern middle class, the modern American middle class, which has been, arguably dwindling for the last 20 years, was largely the result of labor unions. It wasn't. Exactly. It just didn't magically come into being. And it's not natural in economic systems and political systems. We made it.
In fact, you're absolutely right. So two things on this. In fact, you're absolutely right. And frankly, in a capitalist system, the only way that people have a voice is not because of somebody like Donald Trump says he's going to protect you. It's far from it. The only way people have a voice is if you have a union that is the check and balance on the level of the local, corporation or the local business. And on a macro level, what you see is when you have enough density in an area, like in the auto unions had in Michigan, you could actually raise the standard of living for everybody. And that's what happened so much in what is now called the Rust Belt, but what happened in the middle of the country, what happened in California, what happened in New York. But the other piece you're raising, which is also really important, is that we don't even teach civics anymore. It's pretty embarrassing. All we've done, and part of the reason that there's been this shift and the fight to change federal education policy and federal education law, was the only thing that counted was the math test and the English test. And so it's not just the political issue about whether labor is in the curriculum, which it should be, but in so many states it isn't. Our Shanker Institute did a study on this a couple of years ago and saw that virtually in no states did they require labor as even a day or two to talk about. And so if you don't, and then you just see Flunks 5, then you don't know what labor unions did in terms of the creation of the middle class. But the bigger question is we have to actually have schools that are about the joy of learning and about promoting kids' creativity and critical thinking and being prepared for not just college and career, but for life and for civics and for civic participation. And so, you get with your question both the big areas that I work on a day-to-day basis.
I can imagine. So where, I get it. So where is, just to kind of down to brass tacks here in the 2 minutes or so we have left before we hit this hard break, where is the Employee Free Choice Act at?
So what happened is that we lost. I mean, even people like George McGovern were against us on the Employee Free Choice Act, which was crazy.
That was bizarre.
But,
yeah.
It was bizarre because, but people like Hillary Clinton and who were then the senators, are very much pushed it. And they pushed it during the early times of the Obama administration. He never actually made this a priority, which is part of the reason why people were concerned and were disappointed. But at the tail end of this administration, there has been real changes to the rules in terms of the National Labor Relations Act, and as a result, we are now getting quicker elections. And the quicker the election is, the more likely the union wins because the boss doesn't have the same kind of time to intimidate individuals. And so, those changes were very, very important. What Hillary Clinton has said is that labor has to be a big part of the table. With labor's rise, rises the middle class. And so if she does become president, and I hope she does, I think what you're going to see is a lot more attention to the things that actually grow our economy again: infrastructure, manufacturing, labor unions, making sure that kids can go to college debt-free, making sure there's early childhood education so that there's a real ladder of opportunity again, both educationally and economically.
Yeah, and this is such an important step. So do you think that the Employee Free Choice Act or some version of card check will be coming up in Congress after the election or after the inauguration?
Yeah, it depends. Look, it very much depends on who is, whether we win back the Senate and
the House.
Elected.
Yeah. So, in other words, get out there and vote.
Get out there and vote. Because at the end of the day, what happens is, with the labor movement goes the middle class. And I'm not saying we're perfect. We're not. There's lots of issues where we had to change and we have to change. But in terms of just basic economic power,
labor is key to it.
Power is at the ballot box and the bargaining.
Hang on just a second here. Hang on just a second.
This is the Thom Hartmann
I'm sorry, that guy
Program.
always steps on me. Randi Weingarten, the president of the American Federation of Teachers, AFT.org. President Weingarten, thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome, Tom. Thank
Great
you.
talking.
To watch more clips from our programs, hit the Watch More Videos button over here. And please be sure to hit the handy-dandy subscribe button so you'll always be up to date. Tag, you're it.